is the failings of holding each other accountable and the failings of being open to each other as men largely because no one has role modeled that for us. So we don't know how to be, particularly coming from a context where, in South Africa at least, 2/3 of households are single-headed households, and those households are women-headed, right? So for the boy child, there really isn't that much of a, mentorship figure, someone that can really, quote unquote, teach you in the ways of being a holistic man in terms of being in touch with who and what you are. Do you think that contributes, or do you think that's just a pure cop out? I'll start with Michelle.
Excuse.
Yeah, and that's why I'm bringing it.
Oh my God, I just cringe when I hear that because I feel it's such an excuse. It's such an excuse, right? Because why is it that a female that was not necessarily raised by her mother, able to birth and able to protect, able to nurture, why is it that when it comes to women, we're naturally born as nurturers, and and with men, you guys really need so much support, like to do the right thing, to actually admit to one another that actually we don't know what we're doing. Do you think we should have conversations with people that we actually share the space with, planet Earth, to understand exactly what is it that they need? I feel that you guys want to justify not being, come on. I feel like it's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't raised by...
It was my mama that raised me, I didn't know.
But therefore, because you were raised by a black female, a strong, powerful woman, and I'm, by black, I'm talking about strength of women and not necessarily color. Yeah. And I think people just generally don't get, like, when we talk about, like, black strength of the power of a being, the power of a woman. And so in this case, the power of a woman, you were raised by a woman, and therefore you feel that you grow up, 20 years later, you treat women like crap, you treat the minority like crap, you treat people like crap. That is not what you would have learned from your mother. And that is not, you definitely know that this is not the right thing to do because this is what my father did. So to say now, I'm exactly as the guy that left me, it's just, and if you actually head yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, are you even listening to yourself? You that guy, you're the douchebag that left my mom, and everything she did, she's actually failed.
You've actually become him.
Yeah, you've become him, and everything she did, she's failed. And you just like another statistic. You just like another black failed guy because you're afraid to have conversations. You're afraid to have conversations.
What do you think?
Can I add another angle to that? Because I think the question was around not enough role models for men to be accountable to each other. Well, you guys were focused on the absent male, or let's say the absent father. There's another angle where the father is present, but what you learn from that situation is that the father is never corrected. The father is always right. Yeah. And then you, as a boy child, you pick up that, okay, sometimes the father themselves will say, you don't do this in my house. One day when you have your own home or house, you will do as you please. So you grow up with that. So it's a catch-22, absent or present. It's still.
But isn't it funny that that's his idea of being masculine? That's his position, and he needs everyone in the house to feel that he is in charge, and therefore this is what you guys should know. And therefore, isn't that like exactly the crust of what we're discussing here? To say that the man that's never corrected, or that there's a perception like, oh, this is my house, don't correct me, is because also he feels like that's his. Let me be a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And ultimately, it's that kind of viewpoint or thinking that's ultimately the bedrock of patriarchy, right? Do you think we have done a good job as men in holding each other accountable? Yes or no?
No.
Which is the common answer. Now, please discuss for a few marks.
Yeah, so I think... So think of it this way. Think of like in black communities, right? There are specific places, events, activities that tie certain social groups together well. And for whatever reason, we haven't, as men, organized ourselves like that outside of taverns and ship-ins and to a lesser extent sports by and large, right? So, for example, women will have stokvels. And then if they believe in sort of, they'll have prayer groups. And there's, a sense of that. And I think in our traditional communities, we had that. We had, like, in the village, when there's an event, then the men are sitting and discussing on certain things. Like, a lot of these different institutions. And I don't think we have invested enough in creating those positive community spaces for ourselves to discuss the issues that we affect, right, that also affect us. And I think we haven't done well with that. But I think also, I don't know if we call each other out enough when our behavior is inconsistent with what we bemoaned the older generation for.
Why do you think that is? I mean, because it's almost like we've become the very people that we said we wouldn't be, right? And we're not calling each other out on it. And I'm trying to understand for myself, what is the biggest barrier? Is it that we, amongst ourselves, refuse to be vulnerable to each other in that way, for you to be able to speak into my life and hold me accountable? Or is it a case of because we're men and we feel like, okay, well, no one can tell me anything, we just inherently know that, it's not my place, it's against the bro code to call this guy out?
We're negotiating fragile masculinities and fragile senses of how we are, that it becomes hard for us to drop the veil of pretense and ignorance and be able to come directly to us and be vulnerable with each other. I think, as I'm trying to think of a contrast of like the best friendships I have and the ones where like there's some of those that can definitely do that. And like with those, they often lack a sense of having to pretend to be a thing. They are able to express vulnerability in general a little bit more and able to talk about, celebrate, and even make fun of the aspects where we aren't as masculine as we ought to be.
Okay.
But if you don't drop that, if you don't peer beyond that surface, I think it becomes very, very hard for you to have substantive, real, and then we all, it's like that whole thing about, so I don't drink beer, but like, like 8 boys in a private school dorm somewhere forcing themselves to like beer. And then after this, like, I love beer. It's like, well, but it doesn't taste nice, maybe, right? For some people, right? But there's, I think, a lot more of that we're still doing, which will prohibit, I think, any real below the surface interactions.